long time in the country, it's different than the immigration that we have now. And let's just say for openers.
Okay. We're going to just place ourselves right here because let me just say right now, this interview is crazy. Holy shit. I don't even know what to say, guys. I don't even know what to say. Right now, it's a nothing fest. Let's get into the real shit. Come on.
They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland and Italy, 1 from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization. The people that have come in since 65, since Hart-Celler, they're coming from China.
Yeah, and I've got immigrants from Germany on one side of the family, and on the other side of the family, they predate the United States. They were colonials under the British Empire, 1600s. So who cares, though, right? Like, as if any of this matters.
The Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so first, they're just different people. Secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more.
What about how he thinks that the black people are actually genetically stupider? What about how he thinks that Hitler was a cool guy? That Stalin was a cool guy? Where are we going to get to the good shit? Come on! Fuck this dude! This is a glaze. I'm so upset. This better get good fast.
And then it would stop. And then you'd have another wave, and then it would stop. This one, it just keeps going up for 35 years, and it's too many. So that's really where I would draw the distinction between maybe where I originate from. I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
An invasion?
You mentioned Mexico in that list, and your father is half Mexican. So,
yeah.
I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably.
Wait,
immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
Not really true, because...
Oh, yes, it is! You're Mexican, boy! Get out of here! Get out! Deport!
Immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have 0 immigrants forever, or even 0 immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents that came here even earlier. Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now. Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe Biden, and you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela, El Salvador, and it's so many with no break for assimilation, and they're all from non-white countries. It's transforming what America is, and again, that's the distinction.
Non-white has nothing to do with it. I agree. It's an actually insane thing that happened under the Biden administration with a flood of immigrants. It has nothing to do with their skin, has nothing to do with their ethnicity, has everything to do with their culture. Somali immigrants, where it's majority Muslim, where they believe it's okay to trade off your 9-year-old to sell to a 60-year-old, let them get married, and then raped by that 60-year-old. I think that is where, if that's the culture there, we shouldn't be importing that culture to America.
And that's what makes it unacceptable.
But it has nothing to do with skin color, you dumbass.
I've interviewed thousands of people. I mean, maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. Said before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is, do you think you grew up in a racist environment?
Oh my God.
Your father was inherently racist, and that
this is so dumb.
Moved to you.
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked as a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents...
Oh, shut up, you attack... Oh, shut up.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And I'll
I'm not trying to ambush you.
Them.
As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think
I'm not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the podcast.
Exactly.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to...
This is really weak. It better get better than this. He better challenge him more than this.
Whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the south side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family, being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican, in the west side on Taylor Street, all over the city.
Being ethnics?
Near and around black people, and
they're ethnics, guys.
Views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you.
Hang on, Nick Fuentes and his parents, they're ethnics. And like, but I'm ethnics. I'm an ethnic. What the fuck? His IQ is so low.
What my parents would say if they were here is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event, and they light up the trees and they...
Statistically, they might be a majority singularly a majority ethnic group of black people, but it's not because they're black. It's because of the culture that they have been propagating in the pop culture.
You know, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year, and you had a bunch of black people there.
Officer Tatum, one of my favorite black podcasters, and not only that, but he's collabed with Hodge Twins and all these other guys, and the Cartier family that are just based as shit. They address the statistics with the facts, the actual cultural problem that's going on.
Each other, 7 people shot.
It's a Democrat, left-wing policy that's contributed to this.
They say we've lost control of the city, and we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism,
But he thinks it's genetic. The problem is, you think it's a genetically, ethnically, intrinsic thing about black people, you stupid piece of crap. Holy crap. And it's just, that's bullshit!
About attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, you know, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big, diverse city. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before.
Sword problems.
We have problems with
Aladdin.
Ninja swords are banned, Piers. Shut up.
So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but I guess my point about the environment, I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. Mm-hmm. When I read that anecdote, it's just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this already.
But you haven't really directly, I think, responded to.
I got to be in the middle.
Your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No. Well, see here, if you're in America,
holy
you would say
shit,
that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, and stuff is a little.
Are you guys seeing the chat? Are you guys seeing this chat? This is nuts.
Of crap. My dad
There's
was just a food
unhinged
snob.
stuff
No,
on
it's
here.
got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
Okay, so when you told
no.
the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying, well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat an Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. Mm-hmm. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too.
Nick, you are racist. You may not be smart enough to understand that you're not racist. You may not be smart enough. You may not have the IQ to understand just how you're racist. But you are a racist piece of crap. You are bigoted beyond belief. Okay? You are the thing that they claim Donald Trump is. Which he's not. But you are that, Nick. You are straight up a Nazi apologist, a Stalin apologist, Mussolini, just...
In a way,
60.
right? You were born in what, 19? Yeah. So
how can you...
Also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society. But you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is... You're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And
it's not a narrative. He's...
People can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about...
If that's spinning a narrative... Now, you might say, okay, but that's just like the cherry picking that the mainstream did to Donald Trump. Right? But it's not. It's not the same. It's not the same. It just isn't. Not even close.
That story is that it was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
This is where it gets... Oh, my God.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all.
Hey. Do you see yourself? Do you see yourself right here? This is you. Okay? I want you to know.
Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that, 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But you didn't say that. You just said
problem.
Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny or?
I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
I'm the biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot?
That's a statistical truth, yes.
Not all the time. That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son went to Chicago University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west. See what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that you're saying that 5 times as many black men.
You mean to tell me, Nick, that you didn't come prepared to back up your claims, your statistics, bro? You didn't think that you maybe would probably that's probably a good that you might need to do that to come prepared, because you knew, if you've been watching Piers Morgan, that he was going to challenge you on your claims?
Commit murder as the official crime statistics say.
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100? Or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data
Bro!
It said 1 in 20. But, I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
Sure,
this is
a lot
real
of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are 13%. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people, proportionally, commit violent crime than white people, and people vote with their feet. People would rather
That is a
property tax.
That is a statistical truth overall, whether it's 1 in 100, 1 in 20. There's the fact is that is a statistical truth. People like to blame poverty, but 16 million white people live under the poverty line versus 7 million black people. 16 million white people live under the poverty line, okay? More than double the number of black people that live under the poverty line.
Oh, what's with the interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live...
Just because he happens to address, name, or have generally factually true statements, even if he gets exact percentages or statistics off, maybe he's wrong a bit on this or that, but I care less about that and more that okay, he might say some true things about statistical racial truth about statistics and crime. Doesn't mean that he's also not racist, because he is.
Yeah, black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry.
Wow. Tell me that's not racist. You're saying that if his daughter or son found a down-to-earth, Southern black church Christian person, male or female, like whatever the case, right? That God-fearing, family-loving, value-based black person. I can think of Amir Odom, Officer Tatum, the Hodge twins, the Cartier family, Dave Chappelle, all kinds of black people that I know in mainstream media and podcasting and in my personal life that I won't name, that absolutely are wonderful, amazing people, okay? And when it comes to race or people from a certain ethnicity like Arabic, my daughter is half Syrian. So I don't want to hear it. I think that this is bullshit. I think that you can absolutely find good people of all ethnicities. And this is fucking sick the way he says this. And he means it. He's genuine. He's not fucking around. This isn't pretend. He means what he says here. He doesn't want his son or his daughter to marry a black person. What the hell? what the hell? As if that there are no good people, no good valued people, like that there's no conservative or liberal or Democrat or Republican, like all spectrums of the political spectrum and the moral spectrum and like that there aren't just good people of all ethnicities in those cases, in all those cases. You know, one of my best friends growing up in my early 20s, I won't name him, and has recently now, he was a gay black man for like the better part of 6 to 8 years, and now is a transitioned woman, and I've always felt like she was a sibling, like that's how close we were. We'd play fighting games all the time, Super Smash Brothers, all that stuff. And and just like, what a beautiful person. Never wishing harm on any, like, and God calls you, if you're a Christian, Nick Fuentes, if you're a Christian, you are commanded by Christ to love all people, all sinners. You are commanded to love them. This is not this is not something that you can this is not voluntary. It's Christ's demand, his law. You must love even those who persecute you falsely for my sake, for yours is the kingdom in heaven. That is what Christ said on the Sermon on the Mount. So you can disagree with people. You can disagree with people, Nick Fuentes. But what you cannot do is simply say, oh, I would hate for my son or my daughter to bring home a black person and want to marry them. This is to act as if that is not racist. You have an IQ of like less than 80. I think that I don't know what's where is the logical part of your brain that says that is not inherently judging by an immutable characteristic that has nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with religious morality or political morality or general values or principles, as if skin color somehow dictates oh guys, oh no. And I've got freckles. I wonder what that must mean to Nick Fuentes. That must dictate some part of my spirituality or my moral values.
And call me racist? Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Wow!
Everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you really got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist.
Nova 90, good to see you. Magical Misa, Elrich. Apparently, we pretend that we're not racist, but we actually are. We're just pretending, guys. Nothing you can do about it.
You wanted to make emphatically sure. He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody. The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all.
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it.
Can't hear anything on your end. Might be your phone acting up again. Check the video player, Nova 90. So the volume, like you would maybe see right here on the Kick player. You can also watch me live Magical Misa, you can hear fine. Okay, Nova, it's got to be something on your end. You can also watch me live on Twitch. Guys, I will go ahead and just right now, okay, we will right now give the links. Here we go. Okay, there is this one, and let's see, let's go to copy link, and here we go. There is YouTube, and there is Twitch. I am live on all 3 platforms right now. We're going at it for realsies now. We're getting it done.
Fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not.
Misa, arguably, I wish I couldn't hear Nick Fuentes, because holy shit! But I can hear. True! Based!
Be targeting your father. You put that story about him out
You know
there.
what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who work.
Aw, Nicky Poo, are you offended? Did somebody say a bad thing? Are you upset that the thing that the story, the anecdote you told about your daddy being racist, just being quoted back to you word for word, and you're upset about the thing you said? Tell me where this is logical. Tell me where this makes sense. Please, somebody help. Sanity check, chat, sanity check. He's upset about the anecdotal story he told being quoted back to him. Just somebody help me. Somebody give me a sanity check. This is not come on. Am I making sense? So how can he be upset? 39 IQ Magical Misa. Nova 90 says definitely a positive. At least my ears don't have to bleed. Nick's bullshit. Just haha. Yeah, it's oh man. Is it just quiet, Nova? Let me know if it's just quiet or if you can't hear it at all.
At these places.
Yeah.
If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing, and there's a political culture.
Guys, this is why this matters. Magical Misa, you know me very well. We've had long personal conversations about this. El Rich, you know where I stand. Nova 90, I love to see you in the channel. However, we have been in long-time communication outside of Kick, so you also know where I stand on these positions. You know for a fact where I stand on all of these things. And I think it's important, guys, because you know that I generally just am a middle ground, right down the middle, lean Democratic or liberal on some things, lean conservative on other things. It just depends on what category we're talking about. Are we talking about economics? Are we talking about human rights? Are we talking about children's rights? Are we talking about, it depends. And I grab from various different perspectives here. It's right all down, pretty down the middle. But from all the people that know that of the conservative opinions that I might take, let's take that position for a second. Why is it important for me and others like me to call out Nick Fuentes? Because somehow he's pretending to represent conservatism, the right, and he doesn't. This is becoming a poster child for the left to demonize everybody on the right. And it's the same thing that you could do when you pull somebody like AOC or Hassan Abi to demonize everybody on the left. And it's just not the case that people on either side are as extreme or have anything in common with those two figures. That's why it's important.
America, where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say, you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my
No
father's
worries,
racist,
Nova
you're
90.
putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father, because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well,
I'll
then do you
defend
accept
my
that you
views, and
shouldn't
I'll
talk?
defend
Okay,
the anecdote.
listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show, and you shouldn't tell?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
so
not.
So it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listen to that story.
Okay. I get what the question he's going to ask, and actually, he's tripping himself up here. Piers is actually getting an L right here. He's saying it's fine for you to talk about your dad, but I can't. And well, I would that kind of duh.
Or watched it at the time on your show, conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that, but if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did.
And they will.
Yeah, and I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me with your own words.
Whoa.
With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism,
I do.
Let's talk about racism.
Okay,
let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it. So I want to play you another clip. This is where you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by
that? Absolutely.
So people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Okay. Question. You are in a very crime-ridden city. Call it whatever you want. You know that it has statistically a very high rate of crime. You are also now in a very dangerous part of town where a lot of that crime happens. Coming home late night at a bar. You are a young, hot 22-year-old something, and you are a woman. You were just at the club or the bar. You know, you're dressed nicely. You look pretty. You know, trying to meet somebody new or meet up with your friends, but now you're walking home or you're trying to catch a cab somewhere or you're doing whatever. And you see a group of people that are dressed however you think thugs dress, okay? Or gangbangers or like they, you know, bling and lots of baggy clothes and just covered head, and it's, you know, it's cold, it's rainy, it's whatever. You know, they're huddled around. They're sitting on this sidewalk, and then they all get up. They're on the other side of the street. And they're looking at you about to cross that street. They're whistling at you or whatever. Or maybe they're not whistling. Maybe they're not saying anything. Maybe they're just waiting on the opposite side of that street. Are you a racist if that woman chooses to then go a different direction? No. Because the chances are the people I just described are going to be black. That is like a 99% chance. Maybe one of them is Asian or Mexican. But like, let's be honest. We know what kind of situation we're talking about. Like, you cannot pretend that gravity isn't real. Gravity is real. You cannot pretend the earth is flat. It is round. I don't like denying science. I don't like denying facts. So it's not racist if you are avoiding quote unquote black people for reasons like that. Okay? I do not think that is racist in any way. Flat earthers crack me up. Yeah, true. But you get what I'm saying. It is not racist in that context to just like choose a different direction. It kind of looks sketchy. You don't really know what you're getting into. And just to be on the safe side, you go a different direction. That's not racist. And I don't like denying reality in that way. I just don't.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose.
If you're going to a job fair and there's like a black guy that works for the local Charlie Bozarth, Ed Bozarth dealership, and he's a black guy in a suit, and he's wanting to hire you on as a mechanic or a salesman for the car dealership, and you avoid that job fair desk because he's a black guy. Well, then that's racist. Come on. I think that people can understand what he means here, the difference. I do think that Nick is still a racist. I think that's obvious. But I think he's also talking about things that are also true that are not racist.
Proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control.
What it means to be here's what it means to be colorblind. Okay? Martin Luther King Jr. said you should judge a person by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. What he's talking about wait, what the hell? What the hell happened?
You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people, are violent, or
Whoa.
the reason there's crime is because of police brutality, redlining, or all these other things.
That was weird. Okay, we're back. I don't know what the heck happened, but we're back. All right. So, Martin Luther King Jr. said to judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. What he means is that in a generally normal situation, okay, where you're not looking at, potentially being in danger by, or being in a vulnerable position, if you're not in a, what you would consider a vulnerable position, right? And you're not by yourself, or maybe you are, but you're in a relatively secure area. You feel secure. You're not vulnerable. That in those circumstances, socially or professionally or culturally or religiously, whatever the situation you are in, that if you feel generally secure and not vulnerable, then you should only judge people by the content of their character, period. You should only be looking at people through that context. If you are in a vulnerable situation where you think that if a situation were to arise, you would be in danger, you would be at a very severe disadvantage physically, mentally, whatever, and you would be in danger. If you believe that you are in that position, then it is perfectly rational to use whatever means judgment necessary to make sure you are not in danger. That's what it means. Okay? That's what it means. If that means that you then have to make judgment calls about a group of boys on the opposite side of the street that are acting thuggish, and they happen to be black, and it's the middle of the night, and you're a woman walking alone by yourself, and you don't feel comfortable with putting yourself in the middle of a bunch of what appears to be, a bunch of thuggish looking rogues, like we had highwaymen in the Middle Ages. Like, generally speaking, maybe you just avoid that situation because you're in a vulnerable position. It matters. The context matters. Jeez, it's so easy.
Things they said we need
it's
to get rid of the
common
police,
sense,
we need to
people.
defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged.
Let me be clear. He's right. He's saying the same thing. But that doesn't mean he's not racist. This opinion is not racist, but he is. Okay? Let me be very clear.
Whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the...
He has other opinions that are.
They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. They grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged. Or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person...
How do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's...
I think they're bad. Yeah, imagine that. Post 2000s, you have massive emasculation and demonization of straight white men, and there is a rise and uptick in the early 2000s and the early, pre-2015 times of the century of school shootings or mass shootings by straight white men. Gee, I wonder why. You demonize them, you put DEI in there, and it goes even down at that point. Like, they get their shit together, they're getting upset, they start grouping together, realizing that no, this is not the way. Because they realize they're being ostracized.
White people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime. And it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm just...
Gee, I wonder what the percentage is of white people in America that makes up 67% of the population. I wonder what the percentage is of those people that are mass shooters versus the percentage of black people that are committing gang violence and killing people in that perspective, in that vein of murderous crime. I bet it's higher in one than the other. That's a fact.
I'm curious. I'm curious.
proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in
Wait,
these
is my
schools.
mic working?
What
proportion?
Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters.
That is statistically
compared
true.
to the entire white population, and everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you. It's
No.
65% of school shootings by white
You're
people.
telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb, or are you just not that
What
smart?
difference does
What's
that
the
make
difference?
to the children lying dead on the ground?
A huge
On the
difference.
victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people?
If there are more victims of violent gang crime, of violent murders by gangs and gangbangers, and thugs in the street, if there are, and that happens to be 80-90% committed by black ethnic groups, it makes a world of a difference if there are more victims.
Or black people. And that's the difference. The
No,
difference is in
what I'm
terms
saying
of
to you is, by your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men.
Okay. All right. We're doing this right now. I'm getting to the bottom of it. Live right here. You got it here first. You know what? Actually, let's just do this on the side.
Because they
No,
perpetrate these
because of-
massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb, or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb. Maybe
It's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart, actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools. Why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not livable.
I have an answer for
workable.
you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of,
The proportion
again,
of the
are you
population.
hearing it? No.
See,
What's
I
the
think the trouble with your
proportion?
statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say,
Okay.
well, it's true. And when you're confronted
What-
with
but you're- wait, what's
with
the
reality,
figure?
you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No.
yet-
Tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe because
no one's
maybe 'cause
buying
you don't
this.
have
This
kids.
argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference, and it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment. People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment, and we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger, in terms of probability, it's not even comparable. And I would say this, to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare, and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the
Okay.
ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in the city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago. Right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist. So they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color.
All
I don't
black
think you would
people.
probably dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue, when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are a largely in this city, in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population. And I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I do. I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think.
What do you mean, Tim Pool? He's okay, right? He's not dead. He didn't get killed, right? I know that there was somebody tried to shoot at the studio. I heard about that. But Tim Pool's fine. You said what? Magical Misa, Elridge 60, I bet there are more victims of gang crime than mass shootings. I bet there is. Magical Misa says, it's unfortunate what happened to Tim Pool, but all the same, why couldn't Nick Fuentes have been the target? Well, I mean, the difference here, Misa, and I get where you're coming from. I do. I understand how you feel. But it is counter to the point. Like if I'm going to stand up here and say it is fundamentally the work of pure evil and the devil to target and attack and kill a 31-year-old father and husband like Charlie Kirk, it should be the same. Even though he's a scummy lowlife, the whole point of debate and discussion is to have debate and discussion. The idea is that you avoid killing each other. Okay? So if we advocate or say that it's a shame he didn't get targeted, I think that defeats the purpose of free speech. The whole point is that we are able to then have conversations that are difficult without resorting to killing each other. Okay, so we have to be, yes, and you know, I don't mean to berate you. I'm certainly not, because I understand where you're coming from. I think he is a disgustingly horrible racist and, you know, just a bad person who tries to pretend that he's conservative and ends up just making conservatives and indeed Christians look bad. Genuinely. But I think that if we just start killing each other, you'll end up with the Civil War or something again. Yeah. In the heat of the moment. No, I get it. I don't think that that's what you were even advocating for. I don't think that's what you were even saying. So, believe me, I get what you're saying. I know what you mean. But I just want to clarify for basically everybody else that I don't think that's what you meant. I think that what we're saying here is that it would be more understandable if Nick Fuentes, and by the way, he does get targeted by this stuff. And he shouldn't. I think everybody understands how and why he's targeted by this stuff. And that it would make more sense, like semantically, if he was targeted more by and was, you know, this, you know, that this an event like what happened to Tim Pool happened to instead Nick Fuentes, that would make much more logical sense. If that's what you're saying, yes, I agree. But it's still wrong either way, right?
That's extremely desirable, and I think even black people.
Again, Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not It's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews, Chinese.
I can't wait till we get to the misogyny and the absolute disgusting behavior this guy has on women. There's only one person in chat, two people in chat that I know for a fact know my position on women. Nova90 and Elrich66. These two individuals know me personally for very many years, and they know my stance on women, and they know my stance on family as a father, and they know that the things he says about women, it's because he's single and he doesn't have kids. He says he's, appreciates the family unit. Bullshit. If he appreciated the family unit, he would get married and have kids. He's extremely misogynistic and hates all women. And I think he's no better than the radical Islamists and extremists of Islam that want women to be birds in cages. Okay. I want to get to that. I think that's much more relevant to today's world.
The product of an interracial marriage
than race.
Yeah, I mean that's debatable.
Not really.
Because we need to heal the divide between men and women. I think that fundamentally our society is sick. Like there's an illness, there's a disease there, it's under assault, and our immune system is weakened to gender divide, and like with DEI and saying it's okay that gender is a spectrum. It's like gender, sexual biological reality is a thing. And so we can't, I think the far left progressives are just bigoted and anti-science and anti-chemistry and anti-biology. But I think the far right is misogynistic, like Nick Fuentes, and they're anti-women. And I think that those two extremes are just stupid. I think they're totally stupid. Tell me I'm wrong. What do you guys think? Elrich66, you are 100% right. Yeah.
You're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is Mexican. You're literally,
for the sake of argument,
the very person you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race?
And I would say, Magical Misa, you two know where I stand on the gender thing. I don't actually care, right? Live and let live is the philosophy there. If the progressive liberals or the sort of LGBT community, or then the additive, there's Amir Odam who wants to separate the LGBT or the LGBT from the T. I don't care. He's a gay black man on YouTube wanting to separate the T from the LGBT. I don't care. I so don't care. It's so not the thing I care about. It's so dumb that I don't give a shit. So I just don't think that it's helpful to have that conversation. Glooman, good to see you. I don't think it's helpful to have that conversation at all. The far left is wrong when it comes to women's rights and children's rights. But other than that, we should live and let live. Christ is to love all people, and if you're a Christian, like Nick Fuentes claims to be, then you gotta love it. Your God commands you to love everybody, period. You're a sinner, Nick. You're disobeying your own faith by not loving all people, you idiot. You absolute dumbass.
This is Hispanic. Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic, of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous
It's
Americans
not
and
white, though,
Europeans.
is it? It's not white.
Well, apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
Not
a
really. You just
Rondropoulos
keep
thing
saying you
going.
only want to live in a
Kind of.
white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally
and I
got
live in
Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here though, but I'm
Right.
trying to get out. But here's the thing.
Do you have any
Is there a-
non-white? Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most
Right.
of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show because they
How many are
respect
black?
the honesty.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one
Yeah.
who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah. And so how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. He said, "So you use the N-word?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, when niggas are being niggas." I said, "So true. That's so true."
Oh, wow.
So they feel like they're
What
in
does that
complete
mean?
agreement with me.
What does that mean?
It means that even black people know how black people can behave. Even black people understand it. And they know that it doesn't come from a place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing.
The crazy thing is, if you guys know Amir Odam, he's a very popular YouTuber, hundreds of thousands of views every video, millions of subscribers, millions of views for a lot of his videos. He's a gay black man, and I happen to disagree with some of the things he says because he happens to agree with a lot of the things Nick says. Mostly it's about statistical realism, but anyway.
I'll actually
The world is much more complicated than people would like to believe, but man, we got...
dispute.
Just because Nick Fuentes says some things that are true statistically doesn't mean that he isn't also himself actually just hateful and bigoted in certain ways or misogynistic in certain ways. Like just because he says some things that I might agree with in some circumstances doesn't mean that he is not, he might address a thing that is and say a thing that is not racist and actually is true. But he still is racist. He's co-opting a lot of bullshit here.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry.
His most egregious
I consider myself a racial realist.
attacks are on the
realistic
Jews.
about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it, and I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that, and people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion to black people.
Yeah, but we all know that's not what he really
that's
meant.
Called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
How many deranged white men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America?
Proportionally far fewer.
How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull it up.
No,
I don't have
you're
it in
very
front of
big
me.
on...
Proportionally far fewer. That's a fact. Like, I guarantee you, no one can name, it's nowhere even, like, let's say it's 10, let's say it's 20, let's say it's 100, it's nowhere near 100. But how many gangbangers and thugs of a black ethnicity and that population of demographic of Americans have committed violent crime and murder and there are victims that are the victims of murder and injury or whatever of violent crime. I bet you it's in the thousands or hundred or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Like, I bet you it's in the tens of thousands. In the last decade, I bet you it's between 5,000 and 10,000 realistically. It might be more, it might be less, but I'm giving just a vibe. I have no data yet on this. I'm working on it. I'm going to pull it up. We're going to have it on this live stream. But I bet you it's more than 100, and it's nowhere near 100 for these mass shootings. And it's like, how many victims are there to either set of crimes? I think it's more. I'm going to say it's more for the violent gang and thug crime category of that demographic than it is for white mass shooters. But that doesn't, like, again, just because that's true, it's like, Nick, the difference is, guys, I want you to understand something. Nick believes that is inherent to black people. That this is a biological genetic thing and which is fucking unhinged. It's so bullshit. It's really the result of Democrat policy and liberal policy, but he thinks it's intrinsic to their nature. That's why he's a racist. That's why he's misogynistic. He thinks that people cannot help themselves other than to be this stereotypical thing. It's not true. It's not true.
You're obviously extremely exercised by that one story, which was horrific, for the record, absolutely horrific, and should never have happened. The person who perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that. But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know it's far fewer from experience. Okay. Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on, and I would add to that, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After Carmelo
how many
Anthony
times has it been perpetrated by white people?
Well, hang on, let me finish my point.
But you're implying that white people don't do this, and my point to you is, of course,
he didn't say that. He never said that. He never said that.
Either know, no disagreement. You neither.
Okay, you have to have intellectual honesty, Piers. He actually didn't say that. If you're gonna rail him, and I want you to rail him, you have to do it with truth and facts and being honest. And he didn't say that at all. You have to do it above reproach, my dude.
Know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know but don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism.
He will try to convince you that when he embraces racism, by the way, this is why he's insidious, okay? He will try to convince you that what others will dub him as racist, because by their criteria, he has this statistical realism approach to problems we have in America. And then he will try to categorize that as the reason why they call him racist and the reason why he embraces it, because he's not going to turn away from statistical realism. But he's lying to you, because that's not the truth. The truth is that he believes this to be an inherent thing that is passed down genetically through these ethnic demographics. That is why he's racist. He believes that. He believes that Jews cannot help themselves but to have this, world domination effect as a culture, or as a religion, or as a people. He believes that, he believes that it's not because of the statistic the statistic realisms. I mean, it is, but it isn't. He thinks the statistic realisms of crime is a reflection of unavoidable genetic, science-based, generational, biological, passed down tendencies of the demographic of that ethnic group. And that's where it's fundamentally, completely fucking false. And why he's a racist. Okay? I need you guys to understand that.
Of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. You know, the problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic.
This is where he's propagating statistical reality, but that doesn't. It's not why he chooses to believe and spout these things. Okay, I just need you guys to understand that.
Because they've been told they're victims of racism, they're victims of slavery. They've been told really there's no accountability. If they're rude, if they're inconsiderate, if they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we have been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence. And that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media.
So just to be clear, you don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of behavior.
And who are narcissists?
I see where this is going.
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
Turn this around on me.
You're ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said, what black friends have you got? You said,
I am kind of black, aren't I?
No, not that. You said, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying your choice of black friend is Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist in America. Do you understand the problem? So he's your friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor about narcissistic black people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life...
I have, yeah.
Okay, well, then you know. He's nothing but polite, considerate.
Actually, he was very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him. He's a supreme narcissist, and he's also...
You keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black? Because you're being very rude by interrupting me right now.
To you.
I'm giving you a hard time, but I do want to finish my point.
Are you black?
I do want to finish my point about Ye.
Like, what the fuck?
He's a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite, and by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. He's actually not like that at all.
Okay. He's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite. And we're going to take a little commercial break here, and we're going to come back and talk about anti-Semitism.
Yeah, so is Nick Fuentes.
And indeed what Ye said about the same subject matter. Angels left Fuentes. Let's just turn to... Okay, back with Nick Fuentes. Let's just turn to anti-Semitism. In your interview with Stephen Crowder last week, you answered emphatically that you don't hate all Jews. Is that correct? That's your position?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to play you this clip.
Well, I don't hate any Jews. Let me just amend that. I don't hate any Jews.
Okay. Let's play this clip.
The reason I've had it is because my opposition to world Jewry and Israel is rooted in absolute, uncontestable fact. We have the truth on our side. That's why we're winning. Because we are telling the truth about the historical antagonism between Jews and Europeans, between Jews and Christians. The theological, historical, racial, cultural, and political antagonisms between
that's a Catholic thing.
And the Christians. Organized Jewry.
Let me be clear. That is a Catholic bias, and he's raised Catholic.
It's real. It's true. I can
so is Tucker.
I can show you. I can name the names.
It's the Catholics that are the problem, people.
Trail, the money. That is why we're winning. That is why all of this is raising the consciousness.
Opposition to world Jewry. I mean, it's one thing to criticize, for example, the Israeli government over what it's been doing in Gaza. I've done that myself. When you talk about world Jewry, I presume you're talking about the 15 million Jews in the world, and you are opposed to them. How does that square with your position that you don't hate any Jews?
Well, do you take issue with my use of the term world Jewry?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Or do you take issue with it? Do you have a problem with that?
Clarify what you mean by it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. The gaslighting's crazy because I use that expression on my show all the time. I say organized Jewry, world Jewry. And do you know that for like 30 years, the World Jewish Congress has an annual keynote called the State of World Jewry? Barry Weiss has given it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. She gives the State of World Jewry address.
But Nick, what do you mean by it?
I mean, you have to talk about, there's a concept of Jewish peoplehood. It's the sense that they are part of a common nationality, a common tribe, a common people. And so where they reside in Israel, the United States or Europe or elsewhere, they see each other above or maybe on a different level alongside their nationality, their state, wherever they reside. If they're in Germany, France, the United States, they see themselves as part of a transnational nation, of an international nation. The Jews in America, the Jews in Israel, they identify as Israeli or American, but they also have something in common. They identify as part of a common nation, which
You mean there's a brotherhood to and a sisterhood to being to belonging to a faith? You're kidding me! No way! No way! There's no way!
Say there's a world Jewish population, it's world Jewry. And world Jewry has representatives. There is such a thing as the World Jewish Congress, where they actually elect, it's democratic, all the local Jewish organizations elect representatives to represent proportionally the Jewish population in their area at the World Jewish Congress. And it's sort of like Davos. It's like the World Economic Forum, but it's exclusively for members of the Jewish nation that exists across.
You mean having shared values and principles, cultivates bonds? No! 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 That can't... No way! That's not right! Give me a break.
Across the world. And so that's a real thing.
There's more values and principles that Judeo-Christians have together than any other group in the world, you moron.
And I didn't make that up, and that didn't come from 4chan. It's like
any other religious group, anyway.
I read their books. I watch these speeches. I watch a speech from Barry Weiss. I pay very close attention. So that's what I mean by that. There is such a thing as it's a nation that exists across borders on a global scale. They're organized, and they have a national self-interest as that nation, as that tribe.
So if you don't hate any Jews, what do you like about them?
I like a lot of things about them. I think they're funny. I think they're smart. I think that they're pretty remarkable people. And as Christians, especially as Catholics,
they value family. They value community. They value the family unit, raising children with a mother and a father. They fundamentally have the 10 Commandments as a baseline. They don't believe in slavery like other religions do. They don't believe in selling off your 9-year-old to be married and raped by a 60-year-old like some religions do.
Say they're remarkable. And this has been adjudicated in Catholic doctrine for thousands of years. We say that they're a witness people. And so we actually, there's provisions inside of Catholic doctrine that says we need to give them special protections because they were a witness to Christ's passion. So, this is why you can't clip the show. You have to watch the whole thing. I say this repeatedly in interviews. I do think they're remarkable. By definition, they're exceptional people. It's just that there is a sort of natural opposition between them and Christians because of the theology. We believe that Christ is the Messiah. They don't. They have been a minority.
Just a reminder, thank you guys for the follows. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the comments in the chat. Glooman, I appreciate your follow. F. Fuentes, emoji angry. Yeah, true.
In Christian lands for thousands of years, and they have been pushed around.
True and real.
And they've been persecuted and segregated, and that's why there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of distrust. There's maybe some sense of chauvinism among Jewish people. So there is, like I said in that clip, there is an historical antagonism between these two peoples, between Christendom and Jewry, and that has always been the case in Europe. But I don't hate them, and I think I actually sort of understand them in a weird way. I think that because I've studied a lot of their politics, I think I really kind of know them in a way, and it doesn't come from a place of hatred.
Do you have any Jewish friends?
I do. I have many, yes.
But that's weird because you said this.
Jews and Christians have never been friends, ever. Not since Jesus Christ fought with the Pharisees.
Oh my God!
Not since
Caught!
was leading the charge persecuting the Christians. Not
Of course, it is a bit out of context because he's saying that's the same thing as saying that he doesn't have any personal Jewish friends, Jews and Christians. And like, obviously he's wrong and it's bullshit and it's fake and it's like he's fucking propagandizing. But it isn't the same thing. It's not true. He's like comparing the two here. But it also isn't true, so like, I don't care.
since the Roman Empire, not since the Middle Ages. Never. We've never been friends. We've never been allies. We've always been set against each other, actually. And even here in the United States, it was communist Jews who were the architects of both communism and the civil rights laws that are dispossessing white Christians of their land and civilization.
The Jews and Christians have never been friends ever, except for you and your Jewish friends.
Yeah, so easy. As peoples, as nations.
Got it.
Not saying every individual Christian. And of course, there have been Christians.
Obviously,
there have been
that's what he
Christian converts
meant.
To Judaism, Jewish converts, Christian. You're nodding your head, but you're asking this. I'm saying as peoples, they've
No,
never
I hear
been
you.
aligned.
As a
There's been an
Roman, I'm a
antagonism.
Catholic
Okay.
like you, and I have many Jewish friends. I'm just trying to compute what you're trying to say, which is Jews and Christians have never been friends ever. And I'm like, well, you have Jewish friends, I have Jewish friends, we're both Catholics, therefore we're Christians. So it doesn't really quite add up.
Well, like I said, as peoples, there has been an historical antagonism as peoples. And you could even say the same about blacks in the United States. Of course, there were black and white people that were friendly with each other, but in many ways, they were set against each other as groups. And I think that's easy enough to understand.
The reason that many people think you're anti-Semitic is that you have regularly downplayed the Holocaust, and in particular, the number of Jewish people who were murdered by the Nazis. It's been said that you believe no more than several 100,000 have been killed. And I'm going to play you this clip.
People talk about, well, you know, what about the gas chambers? Well, to the extent that that's real, I find that hard to believe, but to the extent that's real, there have been atrocities committed and genocides committed in all times and all places. Let's acknowledge why Hitler casts the long shadow. Because that confers a political benefit upon Jews. That's why.
It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there.
You think that's funny?
It's funny. It's amusing what you're doing because, you know, that one was a joke. But do you want to talk seriously about the
Do you think
Holocaust?
yeah, I do.
That one was a joke. But do you want to talk seriously about the
Do you think?
Holocaust?
Yeah, I do
We can
actually.
be
I mean,
very
I
serious.
do because I just find it extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why, too soon?
Oh,
Too soon to make jokes?
How many people
damn.
do you think died in the Holocaust? How many Jewish people?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 7 million. What's the number? 6 million, something like that?
So you
8 million?
you concede that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust.
Possibly more. Possibly, you know, we're discovering all the time. So it could be, maybe even be more than that.
So why
Upwards
have
of
you
10.
why have you doubted the numbers in the past?
I'll tell you why. I really think that every death is a tragedy, however many Jewish people died in the Holocaust. And I'm not a World War II historian, so I'm actually open to believing the official narrative, and I've read some of the conspiracy theories. And to tell you the truth, it's a rigorous debate. But you know what's interesting about this is in many countries, it's not even legal to talk about it. And that's really where my interest in the Holocaust begins and sort of ends, to tell you the truth, is that if you wanted to question the number, you would be put in jail in about, 17 or 18 European countries. And I think that's really the more interesting conversation, which is that this is almost like a religious dogma in the West. No other genocide, no other atrocity is treated like this. Could you imagine if in the United States they said the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza is 100,000, and if you don't say that, you're going to jail, you're banned on X, you can't have a job? That's the part that's totally insane. And a lot of people, they can't even make up their minds. I think it's actually done a disservice. If your goal, and I'm not saying you as Piers Morgan, but if you're an advocate for awareness about this, if your goal is to convince everybody that this is the way the Holocaust happened, I think the last thing you'd want to do is say that everyone that disagrees is in jail and is banned and you're not allowed to say it. So there's really been no open debate about the subject since the scholarship started to be produced about 60 years ago.
There is no debate to be had about the number of people who were murdered. Even the Nazis in the trials after the war confirmed the numbers. The amount of documentation that was recovered, notwithstanding the attempts by the Nazis to destroy it, the amount of documentation that was saved and preserved and used for trials of historical record is unprecedented in the history of mass slaughter of human beings. So we have a very clear idea of how many people were gassed to death in the gas chambers. We have a very clear idea of how many were starved to death, were kept in ghettos, died of disease, of forced labor, of death marches. We know how many Jews were slaughtered. It's at least 6 million. What's interesting to me is that you appear to now concede that, which may be news to a lot of your regular viewers who have constantly heard you quibble with the number of Jews who died in the Holocaust. And for the record, just to confirm what I think you told me, you do now accept that at least 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
Well, no, I said it could even be higher than
well,
that.
it could be higher. That is true.
I think it's at least.
But you
I think you're
accept
right.
at least.
It is at least. Oh, it's at least 6 million. But
Okay.
it could be 100
well,
times
people
more
are
than
going to
that.
be okay. The people are going to be.
Let me respond to the rest of your question.
Sure.
What you're saying, I understand where you're coming from when you say it has been documented and there are confessions and so on.
I have shared
Let that speak
the
for itself. But
answer,
you don't see, your show
the
is called Piers
statistic.
Morgan Uncensored.
Yep.
But the United Kingdom is censored and Europe is censored. And if you talk about these things, you will be put in jail in many countries. And I think that's where a lot of people start to say, well, if the truth is so clear and if there's such overwhelming evidence, why do you need to throw people in jail for disagreeing? And you yourself said, well, there is no debate. I think everything is debatable. I think everything at least should be debated. And if the evidence is very one-sided, let the evidence speak. Don't throw people in jail. So do you think that Holocaust denial laws should be overturned?
I don't particularly agree with Holocaust denial laws. I don't think people should be imprisoned.
Okay.
Well, because I have a blanket view now, which has evolved slightly actually over the years, that I have a blanket view that speech should not be criminalized, right? People should be allowed to say what they want to say, and they should be then made accountable for what they say. If you have an employer, they can make a view about whether you are the right kind of person they want for their employment, as they would make a decision about anything else you do in life. So I actually believe that speech should never be criminalized. It's my personal view. I understand why in places like Germany, they have strong laws about it because they want to move on from what they believe was the most shameful moment in their history. I understand that. Do I want that in my country? No. Am I appalled by what has been going on with free speech in the United Kingdom in the last 2 or 3 years? Absolutely. It is ridiculous that people have been frog marched to prison cells for stuff they put on social media, right? So yeah, I do. I think what is more interesting to me about our exchange is I was not expecting you to go the opposite way. I was not expecting you to be so emphatic that at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. Now, with people watching this who I think will be very surprised by that, because you have built a reputation for being, if not a Holocaust denier, then somebody constantly questioning in a downward way the number of Jews who were murdered. That doesn't appear to be what your position is now.
No, and here's what I would like to see for my entire career. When I started my show, it started with a good faith inquiry where I was questioning a lot of these narratives and I said, what is the answer on the other side? But what I found is that the answer was criminalized. So when you would talk about anything regarding Jews, Israel, the Holocaust, you could be in favor of the official narrative on those things. If you went against, you were banned, censored, and in some countries jailed. And so I actually haven't made up my mind on that because that's not really a matter of interest to me. And there's a lot of analysis and scholarship on both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there has never been There's never been a debate on it. And there's never been a debate because of the stigma, because of the censorship. And I think that leads a lot of people to say, well, what do they have to hide? Because you can say on your show, well, I'm personally against Holocaust denial laws, yet they still persist and the social consequences still persist. And I think that that is the anomaly. And people have to wonder, okay, why is it that way? And what I said in that clip is the reason the Holocaust casts a long shadow is because it confers a political benefit upon organized Jewry. That is what they always fall back on. They cannot be criticized. They cannot be named. They cannot be talked about lest there be another Holocaust. And no other tragedy is treated that way. And no other ethnic group has a get out of jail free card. Just play that. Anti-Semitism and Holocaust. You can do whatever you want and defend all your actions. That's the part that people are getting upset with. That's the problem.
I don't know any right-minded person who believes that Jewish people weaponize the Holocaust for their own personal get out of jail free or whatever you called it.
You don't know anyone that does that? That believes that?
I'm sure there are some people that do that, but it's such a ridiculous generalization. You know, the truth is that most Jewish people have lost relatives in the Holocaust. In fact, I want to play you two clips. One is where you talk about Adolf Hitler.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really fucking cool.
That's so
you regret saying
fucking.
That? Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely true.
That's not
Hitler
a
was
fact.
Really fucking cool.
That's an opinion.
I do.
Ah!
You're pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest.
This is the problem, you see. It's a bit like when you just say, I'm a racist. You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're
The most egregious and the most numerically superior mass murderer of history, he is the most guilty of genocide, the only one ever been that could ever fit the description of genocide like that I know of, other than maybe, I don't know, Genghis Khan. I think that it's insane to think that, oh my God, dude, this guy thinks Hitler is cool. Who the fuck? Why and how? Like, what's a fact? Are you serious? This is unhinged.
Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking? I'll tell you what they're thinking, because I've got a friend of mine called Danny Finkelstein, who, when he heard I was interviewing you, he's a Times journalist in the UK, very eminent journalist here, and author, who wrote a book about his own family's experiences at the hands of Hitler and Stalin, because he also told Tucker Carlson that you admire Stalin. But let's just take what Danny said here.
Hi Piers, it's Danny Finkelstein here. As you're interviewing Nick Fuentes, you might try suggesting to him that he reads my book, Hitler, Stalin, Mum and Dad. It's called Two Roads Home in the United States. Since he says he's on Team Hitler, you might like to ask him about the fact that Hitler arrested my mum, tried to starve my mum to death, did starve my grandmother to death, sent my great aunts to the gas chamber, my great uncle, my cousin. My grandmother on my father's side ended up being
and Nick thinks that's cool.
7 children, the only one that survived the war. So you might ask him whether he wouldn't rather be on Team Mum rather than Team Hitler. And as for celebrating Stalin's birthday, well, Stalin took my father, sent him to a state collective farm, sent my grandmother and to a state collective farm, sent my grandfather to the Gulag. You might try asking him why he doesn't celebrate Dad's birthday rather than Stalin's. It may all be a big joke to him, but he complains that he was 18 when someone tried to cancel him. Well, Stalin and Hitler arrested my mum and my dad when they were 10 years old. So perhaps he might like to reconsider his joke.
See, that's the reality of your jokes, although I haven't ascertained yet whether you are joking when you say that Hitler was very fucking cool. Are you joking?
Just as an aside, there was a chat that said Piers is getting cooked. And then America first, Christ is king. I don't think there's anyone in the world that actually believes this. That actually believes that that's what Nick stands for. Saying Hitler's cool, that somehow that's any way related to Nick fucking Fuentes is fucking unhinged.
Or do you actually think he was very fucking cool?
It's a liberal plot. It's gotta be.
Monster of the last 150 years.
Yeah, the thing is, my generation, we're just done with the pearl clutching. You know,
you might be, but then your generation.
I officially no longer believe that Nick is genuinely authentic. I think he's a plant. There's no way in hell anyone could really think that it's okay and cool to just, especially any Christian. There's absolutely no fucking way that believes that anything Hitler did was cool. It's impossible. It's antithetical to everything that's in the Bible. Everything. It's antithetical to being Christian. It's antithetical to being to anything conservative. It's antithetical to everything that anyone and guys, again, I have liberal opinions. I have liberal leaning views, and I pick and choose my policies. Right down the middle, but for the most part. But this guy, there's no way that's it's too insane, too illogical, too irrational, too non-common sense to be conservatism. And it isn't. It's a fucking plant. The whole thing is a scam. It's a scam and a lie, and it's got to be funded by left-wing radical terrorists who want to make America think that being conservative means you're Nick Fuentes or Groyper, and they're doing it to try to damage the left. I think that is the difference is that the left has authentically evil shit, and the right has an actor, a plant, Nick Fuentes. I now am convinced everything he's ever done and said, okay, is because they believed that there were racists or there were statistical realists out there who genuinely have a bias or a racist opinion against other peoples like Jews and black people, that because they believed that and are certain that they do exist, and then there was the upset of actual racist DEI policy, okay, that because I do believe that it was racist, that it ostracized and demonized anybody who was a straight white male. They were told that they were evil and toxic and they were actual victims of this insane, bigoted horseshit from the left. So what they did to try to combat this was invent Nick Fuentes. to try to justify their racism. It's insane. I think that there's one side that's authentic, saying that we need DEI to actually fix real racism because people like Nick Fuentes exist, and that only serves to help them. That only serves to help the liberal DEI fucking insane people, the woke people. It only serves them to have Nick Fuentes out here on this platform. Right? Because it then justifies the insanity from the left. Or they think it does. It doesn't. It only makes it worse. But yeah. I no longer believe Nick is real.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe the pearl clutching
he's a persona.
The families whose family members
Oh my
were
gosh,
murdered.
yeah, we got all that. We, me mom, like we're, I don't even know who this person is. Why is this person talking to me? This old British guy is saying me mom got killed by Hitler.
Because he
me
doesn't
dad
find
got
it
killed
funny
by...
when you say Hitler's very fucking
I
cool.
don't care.
He finds
I don't
I know
care.
you don't care. That's fine. You don't have to care. But he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent conservative in
Neither
America,
do you, Nick.
has to say about Adolf Hitler. And what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
Okay. That's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah, I
mean,
do.
can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow
He
up?
murdered
That
12
is just
million
childish.
people. He murdered 12 million
Okay.
people. What is very fucking cool about that? Tell me.
The edits, it's just cool. The uniforms, the parades, it's cool as a guy. You look at World War II, and it's fascinating, and it's interesting, and it's compelling, and it's cool. And we're just tired of saying these kinds of things. We want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions. And
The
then
uniforms
we
are
literally
cool.
Get
What,
an
like,
Jewish guy from England who's going to say,
what?
"Oh, that's not very funny, mate. Me mom," and it's like, shut up. Like, no one is in favor of genocide. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not in favor of a Holocaust or genocide.
Do you think if
so, like, let's talk about the swastika and see if this is cool. It's like a stick figure gone demonized and warped. Like, it's red, the color of blood, which, it's not in the sacrificial blood like America's red or the British red, which is like to honor soldiers who gave their lives for the country. No. It's more blood as in like murder everything. And it's white supremacy on the background of a black stick figure that is like warped and twisted. It's this weird fucking stick thing, this shape. Like, I don't see anything cool about Nazi uniform. Like, what's cool? You want to know what's cool? Is knights. Medieval knights look cool. Jedis and Darth Vader, even, you might say, looks cool. Like, it's this cool outfit. Like, what is cool about not, like, that goes for all World War uniforms, World War II and World War I uniforms. None of them looked cool. They were all like kind of just like janky. Like, I don't think anything about those uniforms looked cool. I don't think anything about them looked like, why? How does that look cool? You want to know who looks cool? A Paladin or a Dark Knight in Final Fantasy, or the uniforms in Expedition 33. That looks cool. Like, what? What is cool about it?
Years ago.
You think if half your
What?
family had been wiped out by very fucking cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very fucking cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people?
Okay. The dragons in Game of Thrones are cool. There's nothing cool about, what the fuck?
Targeted people because they were disabled or Jewish or Romani Gypsy or whatever it may be, and that he systematically destroyed people, incinerated them in gas chambers. Do you think that you would find it very fucking cool if your family had been through that? Or do you think you would find it very fucking disgusting? And perhaps moderate the number of times you laugh about it, or want to joke about it, or want to abuse someone like Danny Finkelstein, who's written incredibly powerful books about what happened to his extended family at the hands of the Nazis and your other hero, Stalin. See, my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is that in parts of this interview, you try to come across as moderate, but every now and again the mask slips, and it slipped again here with what you say about Hitler. There's nothing very fucking cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what he did. You've already conceded that he murdered at least 6 million Jews. So when you say he's very fucking cool, Jewish people watch this and go, this guy's disgusting. Why would he say this about someone who perpetrated such an evil? And what's the real
I don't
answer?
get it.
Why
I
do
really
it? Is it
don't
just for
get it.
clicks? Is
I
for
really-
money?
I just
Is it
don't.
for fun? For shits and giggles? What is it? What motivates you to say something like Hitler was very fucking cool?
It's for this. It's for all of this. And the lack of self-awareness is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer. And we've spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying, he's a really fucking monster. He incinerated people. This. And I'm sitting here saying it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And,
Not that
what
serious.
I'm getting at.
Not that serious.
Do you want to say more about
Well,
he's a monster?
you're not a kid yourself anymore. You're not a teenager.
I know.
Right?
I know.
You're nearly 30, to be clear.
How can you say it's not that serious when you talk about the most serious criminal in history? And how can you say like that doesn't have, like, as if you're unaware that such a thing is consequential? Are you just stupid? I think he's stupid and not real. Like, I think this whole thing is an act. There's nobody that's stupid.
Yeah,
Okay? You're a
I
fully
know.
formed adult who has a brain, right? And at some stage, that brain has taken you off these
Is
rabbit
this an
warrens.
interview or is this a lecture? Can I respond to what you're saying?
I want
in full?
I want you to explain why you think it's fine to say how fucking cool Hitler is and to dismiss the very powerful.
What do you
90
mean?
seconds from a British journalist who
Like,
lost a lot of family members to the
Justify that you say Hitler was cool. Justify that. Let's hear it. I'm dying to know.
Nazis in such a callous, dismissive manner.
I don't think it's powerful. I think we've been hearing that our entire lives. Okay, the Schindler's List. Let's just be honest. The propaganda is over the top. We have been in America.
What about
and
the Schindler's
everywhere-
List?
Hey,
Tell me
can
about
I
the Schindler's
respond?
List. Well, tell me about the Schindler's List.
I'll tell you about it. We have been browbeaten as a people, as Americans, as Westerners, for our entire lives. And do you know what this has done? It has taken away any sense of pride, any sense of love for our own civilization. We have been made the villain in our own story. We have been made because, well, let's just be clear. It doesn't begin and end with Hitler is a monster.
We? Who's we? Who's we? I don't understand. No one thinks we when they're talking about Hitler, other than maybe Nick Fuentes, I guess. I don't know. But, like, huh? What? Explain, please.
This has been the political narrative, which is why we have thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore, why we can't be proud of Europeans, why we can't be proud of being Christian, because they've told us.
It's not just the moral grounds that Nick is wrong here about Hitler being cool. He's wrong because Hitler was not just morally despicable and evil. He was also politically despicable and evil because his party was the Socialist Party of Germany. He was a socialist. That like the most evil political regime of communism and socialism, that is Hitler. In every way, he's antithetical to conservatism or anything remotely right-wing. He's left-wing evil. He was a socialist. That's left-wing. I can't believe that anybody would compare Hitler to the right wing. He's left-wing.
If you're too white and too proud and too
So Nick Fuentes is both left and right-wing evil.
Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our
What a
entire
crock
lives.
of shit,
See,
honestly.
No,
Nick
it's true.
Fuentes,
And that's why people like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Shit. Honestly.
Yeah, it's a crock. We don't want to hear anymore about me mom and me dad. That's a crock of shit.
What a
Entire
crock
lives.
of shit.
We have thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative. We've been made the villain in our own story. We have been made because, well, let's just be clear. It doesn't begin and end with Hitler is a monster. This has been the political narrative, which is why we have thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore, why we can't be proud of Europeans, why we can't be proud of being Christian, because they've told us if you're too white and too proud and too Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our entire lives.
Shit,
wait.
Actually, that's true. That is the line of the left. That is the globalist left right there. That is true. But that doesn't mean that Hitler is cool.
No.
And he wasn't Christian in his actions or beliefs in any shape or form.
It's true, and that's why people like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's a crock. We don't want to hear anymore about me mom and me dad. That's a crock of shit.
No, listen. What you just said is a crock of shit. and you
It's
know
true.
it.
It's
And
called the open society.
In your gut, you know it is. You weaponize this stuff.
You know.
You weaponize this stuff for money, but you know when you say something
Please.
like what you
I'm
just
banned
said.
from banking.
You
I'm
know
banned from banking and credit cards. You know who you're talking to? I
Yeah,
do it for money.
and by the
How
way-
much money you
and by
make?
the
Your
way,
company's
that
worth
shouldn't-
$100 million.
by-
Your company's worth $100 million. I was banned from Bank of America.
And you
I'm
shouldn't have
banned from
been.
processing credit cards.
And you shouldn't have been.
But I am. So don't tell me I'm doing it for money.
Well, ask me my opinion about that. I'll tell you shouldn't have been. Right? I don't agree with that. What happened to
Then
you?
don't say I'm doing it for money, because you know that full well, and you say it's a
How
grift.
much money- how much
if I
money
wanted to
are
be
you-
a grifter, I'd be like you,
How
and
much
I would
money
go
are-
and say,
How much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about
No, we
slavery
don't.
and the Holocaust and Jim Crow.
Nobody
We're done
does.
hearing about that. You guys
Yeah, I'm not
overplayed your
done
hand.
hearing about that.
Okay, well, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. We're ready to take our country back.
I've got 3
we're not
sons.
listening
I've
to
got
crying
3
minorities
sons.
anymore.
I've got 3 sons, and they don't share your views about
Yeah, well.
slavery and about the Holocaust. They can have decency and compassion and humanity about some of the worst things that have happened in the last 150 years or more.
Sound like girls.
They can do that, and they can also have concerned views about issues like immigration and other issues. The two things are not mutually incompatible. You can have different views about different things. It's your lack of humanity and compassion for people about things like the Holocaust, about slavery. It's that people find so contemptible. And I don't understand why you need to do that.
True.
Again, I just ask you, is your
True.
motivation financial? Is your motivation for fun? What is the motivation for saying these outlandish things, which you don't need to say, and which I suspect, I don't know, I suspect a lot of it is performative. So what is the motivation?
I'm an iconoclast. The Holocaust is not my religion, and it is treated like a religion. It is treated like a religion with dogma, with blasphemy laws, and that secular religion says, and you say that's a crock of shit. It's intentional. It's called the Open Society by Karl Popper. It's by these architects of the liberal order after World War II. They got together and they said, how can we make sure that Hitler never happens? How can we make sure that totalitarianism never happens again? And they came up with the consensus, which is that we need to take down nations, religions, fathers, the authoritarian personality.
This
we need to be
is
empathetic
all
and
true.
altruistic. We need to be diverse and
Yes.
pluralistic. And that experiment isn't working.
But it
And I'll
doesn't
tell you the
like
truth right now, and you can laugh at this, you can scoff.
That's all true, and yet it doesn't justify saying Hitler is cool. Like, he's still wrong. He's still a racist. He's still a bigot. He's still a moron. He's still an idiot. He's still an agent for the left that's trying to justify that very thing.
At this, our people are being genocided in our country. 50% of the live births in the United Kingdom and in the United States are non-white. In 100 years, my ancestors, your kids who are so empathetic and compassionate, they're going to be a minority. They're going to be a minority in maybe a Muslim country, an Indian country, an Hispanic country. And these Jewish people that are 100 years old talking about my grandparents and the Holocaust, they don't care about that. Actually, they like to see it. At the SPLC, they're literally counting down the days until whites are a minority in America. So forgive me if I don't believe them when they talk about compassion. There's a genocide going on right now. It's not against the Jews.
How many Christians are there?
In Gaza, it's against
How many
whites.
Christians are there in the world? Like me and
One
you.
point some billion,
Yeah,
2 billion.
How many Jews are there?
15 million.
Okay. So with a straight face, you're going to tell me the world is being overrun by the Jewry, by 15 million people, when there are over 1 billion Christians. There is a genocide of Christians like poor old Nick Fuentes going on at the hands of these 15 million Jews. Really?
See, this attitude.
See, this it's got no justification. Stay tuned for part 2 on the YouTube side. I'm going to stop and start the recording again for the YouTube video. So stay tuned for part 2 of this interview on the YouTube side if you're on the VOD squad, and see what Nick's answer is going to be to that question.